Welcome, everyone. The sports writers are here. Phil Stacy, Matt Williams, Nick Kukuru are all here for us this week as we can roll along through the high school football season. We'll check on some other sports as well. Uh, I don't know where to begin. Well, I guess I know several places to begin, but let's begin with Peabody and Marblehead. Matt, you were over at the game. I was at that game, and we could touch on some other games as well from over the weekend. We won't beat this game to death too much because you wrote a lot about it, and we had some posts up on it and so on. But Matt, I guess just a total team win for Peabody over Marblehead. And if you listen to Coach Jim Rudloff, he said kind of reiterate that he saw this coming or feared that it could be coming because this is not the same Marblehead team that went out on the field a year ago.
Yeah,
Your
I mean, I'm
reaction?
curious. Well, I was reticent to say that, as people have known on the podcast. I mean, I was a little bit weary of Beverly with Peabody, certainly weary of Marblehead, and having seen Marblehead against North Andover, in the back of my mind, I'm saying, geez, North Andover doesn't look like Peabody does, and wondering like, this may happen, and Phil Stacy kind of said a similar thing after the Beverly game, and I was still reticent to say it, but I think at this point with Peabody, you have to kind of take all the handcuffs off, right? I mean, what more can you say? What they're doing offensively, it's very difficult to defend, and if they can get by Leominster this week, I mean, they're going to go to the playoffs 8-0. With due respect to the NEC South, that's just what's going to happen. So you really have to take your hats off to those guys. I think from a Marblehead standpoint, I was not surprised that Peabody scored on them. I was surprised that Marblehead was not able to do more offensively. And Bill, you can testify to this too. There were a couple of drop passes that maybe could have changed the game. I was surprised that they didn't go to Connor Cronin more. 2 touches. I mean, that's going to be the fewest touches that he's had in a game in well over a year. We all saw him go on that tear through the playoffs and Thanksgiving and the Super Bowl last year. And, it wasn't as if they targeted him a lot and he didn't catch the passes. I mean, they just weren't going his way. And I guess you have to credit the Peabody defense for that. I mean, Marblehead was trying to take what the defense was giving them, and it just didn't work. Whereas on the other sideline, Peabody took everything that the Marblehead defense gave them. They were very patient. They ran the ball very well. They didn't force balls where the defense was trying to take away. I mean, they just Shea Lynch just played a perfect game, and that was the result. And I think, really it was a very close game at halftime. I mean, it was 7-7. Peabody went down, took a 14-7 lead with about a minute, 2 minutes left in the half. Marblehead was getting the ball at the half. So I said to myself, I think I said to you on the sideline too, Bill, like, well, Marblehead scores here. They score coming out of the half. I'm sorry, they were up 2 scores. It was their first 2-score lead, 21-7. But Marblehead had the opportunity to score here, score coming out of the half. Now it's 21-21, and can Peabody rebound? And they got the stop before the half. They got a punt after the half. And in the second half, Marblehead just ran out of gas, and Peabody just kept rolling and rolling and rolling. And that was really the difference. It was not a blowout game the whole way. It really didn't become a blowout until midway through the third quarter. And the visitors just kept up the energy, and the home team just couldn't. And, that's what happened. But so you wonder, what's going to happen with Marblehead now? Coach Rudloff said, this can be one of two things. This can be the thing that saves our season because the kids wake up to what I've been telling them, because it's hard to learn that lesson. Coaches can correct things, but if kids are winning anyway, they say, well, I can keep doing it my way and we're going to win anyway, right? So this can be the thing that saves their season, or this can be the thing that sends them into a tailspin. And, based on the coaching history over there and some of the kids that I know that are really good athletes, really good players, Cronin, Kiao, and on and on. I kind of think it's going to be the latter, but they got a pretty good Masco team coming in there this week. And Masco pushed them really hard last year. Really feels like maybe they could have beaten them twice last year. And that's another team that's probably going to be out for some revenge. So as much as I think Marblehead's going to bounce back, I know Masco is not going to certainly make it easy on them. And it's hard to overlook Masco. So those are sort of some of my thoughts. I mean, I don't want to ramble too much. I know, Bill, you were at the game and probably saw some things, and you guys that were watching the game from afar were probably really. I think everybody was shocked by the score. I mean, that was my question after the game. To all the players, are you surprised by this? And some of them were bravado about it and said no, no, and some of them admitted, yeah, I didn't expect to come in here and score 40 points. That's for sure.
Phil?
But two questions that I have. I mean, one, the more I think about this thing with Connor Cronin, I mean, I know that PBD tried to take him away. They wanted to double him up. They were gonna one of those. It was like Celtics playing Jordan 35 years ago. Like, he can get us 60 points, but we're not going to let one guy beat us. Everybody else is going to have to beat us. It seems like that's the mindset that they had. But I'm still flummoxed by the fact that he had. Would you say 2 touches? Was it, or 4 touches?
Well, no, so two offensive touches, 2 catches,
Yeah.
and a couple of kick returns. So I mean, people are asking about health, and I can tell you, he took every kickoff return, and well, he was out there for every kickoff return. His partner there, number 7, took a couple of them, but he was out there every kick return, and he was out there the one time Peabody punted. So
Okay.
if a guy's nursing an injury, you don't put him out there on kick returns, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And I don't think he missed a snap on defense. So I mean, it's definitely not a health thing.
And he didn't. Did he line up in the backfield at all to run?
Not one, no, no. He lined he lined up a tight end on one play to start the second half, and
I did see that tweet. Yeah, it must have been a halftime of the game I was at.
I tweeted a wise tweet. Oh, maybe they're trying to get the Will Millett plays going. For those that might remember Will Millett, trying to look smart, and then he was back in the slot the next snap. So they weren't interested in my Millett brothers references, I guess. But,
Well, the other thing I was going to say is that Masconomet is not a good opponent for Marblehead to be trying to bounce back against. I think Masco has gained a little bit of steam here.
mm-hmm.
They've got some forward momentum and progress. I don't know if I should say should, but they may get Tyler McMahon back for this week. He's been nursing an injury the last couple of weeks. He obviously is a huge upgrade to their overall scheme on both sides of the ball as a two-way end. And they're playing well. Now, granted, they gave up 4 touchdowns to Beverly the other day, but it's a team that's put up 63 points the last 2 weeks. They got to be feeling about themselves. As you said, they haven't beaten Marblehead in so long. I mean, if strike while your opponent is wounded, I guess, kind of thing. And
well, they're gonna have. I mean, Marblehead, like similarly to Beverly, Matt Richardson threw the ball quite a lot in that game, and I asked Coach Monagle. I said, you guys must have seen something on that Peabody tape that maybe Beverly was a little vulnerable in the secondary. And he kind of, he didn't want to say that because he has so much respect for Jeff Hutton and his program and everything. But he said, he grinned. He kind of said, yeah, we threw the ball a little more than we usually do. And, Sam Nadworny, I think we both had him on our crystal ball predictions to be one of the leading areas and leading rushers in the area. And he's been playing slot receiver and had almost 100 yards. So,
and Will Shannon's got what, 300 plus yards the last,
like that. He's basically the fullback, and so with Nadworny and Barrett, I mean, Peabody's got amazing receivers, but those are that's a pretty good pair. So Masco, Marblehead rather, is going to have to find a way to defend the pass or do a better job of rushing the passer. And while Matt Richardson may not deliver the ball exactly the way Shea Lynch does, I would say straight line speed, Matt Richardson is faster and he might be more escapable. So that presents a real challenge. Marblehead's going to have to button up that defense. So in other words, what I wonder is if Masco is going to see something similar with the Marblehead pass defense, because they didn't defend the pass particularly well in a half against Linfield. North Andover really didn't pass the ball at all. So you can kind of throw that game out, their best defensive game of the year. Peabody obviously had a lot of success passing the ball. So you wonder if Masco's going to feel like they can see a similar thing that they saw against Beverly and throw the ball, and with Richardson and Barrett and Nadworny, I mean, that's dangerous. And if you add McMahon to that mix, that's a real defensive issue there for Marblehead. They're going to have to clean that up in a hurry.
I want to just add one last thing on Peabody. We'll move on to other things, but I thought Peabody clearly played their most complete game of the year, and I've seen quite a bit of Peabody this year. And that I thought that Coach Betancourt's post-game comments, Matt, when we were talking with him, were right on the money in the sense that watched Shea Lynch throw big and long. We've watched Shea Lynch roll and run a lot. Both of those things during the course of the season against other opponents. But yet, Marblehead kept him in control in some respects. Having said that, though, he didn't get the big passes, but that was by design by Peabody because they were giving, apparently, Marblehead was giving them the short pass, not the long pass. And they didn't get the big run really against Marblehead. They got a lot of runs, but they didn't get the breakout run that they've gotten against other opponents this year. So, in that regard, it was a real test, I thought, for Peabody. And I think coaching wise, that was maybe one of the best coaching jobs, overall, when you think about it, as far as a game plan and then executing and adjusting in a game that I've seen in a long time, probably from Peabody. And so I thought it was a total effort, a great team win. And I totally agree with everything else you're saying. I think that could Masco Marblehead game. I don't know if I'd want to be Masco showing up at Marblehead after last Friday's Peabody game, one of those deals. But yet, on the other hand, Masco got tested with Beverly last week, and they got the W that they desperately needed. So
It's a tough one to pick. It really
yeah,
is.
yeah, definitely. That's a tough one to pick.
People will have to tune in for the picks on
They,
it'll be on Thursday again this week. We got another Thursday game, so people get their picks early.
wow, it's great. It's Hey, Nick, let's just jump up there to the Cape Ann area. What can you share with us? I know you saw the Salem football team beat Gloucester on Friday night.
Yeah, good game too. Salem broke out to a 20-0 lead. Gloucester got back into it a little bit, and then Salem hit a nice QB throwback pass for a 72-yard touchdown. My takeaway from that game was Corey Grimes was the best player on the field, and that he was kind of the difference in the game. He didn't put up Shea Lynch numbers, video game type numbers like that, but every time Salem needed a play, he was in the middle of it one way or another on both sides of the ball too. They couldn't block him on defense either, but a couple big passes early to get them the lead. And then, when Gloucester had momentum back, Coach Bouchard dialed up that QB throwback pass. It was Devontae Osuna, looked like a sweep right. And, he stopped and threw back over to the left sideline, and Grimes was wide open, stiff armed a guy about 25 yards downfield, and then just turned on the Jets. So, big win for Salem, 4-0. I know one of their assistants requested some more podcast time now with that win. So they're getting it now, 4-0, big win there, open up the NEC Lynch year with a well-earned victory. I thought they were the better team for most of the night. Gloucester fought back. They scored twice in the fourth quarter to make it 2014. And then actually I should mention Salem, that was a 3rd and 21 play that Salem scored in that QB throwback pass too. So Gloucester was about to get the ball back. Salem actually looked pretty rattled at that point, and then they dialed up, the perfect play in the perfect spot, got them the win.
Nick, you've seen a lot of those Salem Gloucester games over the years for us. What do you see as different about Salem this year? And I guess maybe you could even say last year where they beat Gloucester, but is it athleticism? Is it confidence? Is it swagger? I say this because I haven't had a chance to actually physically see them play this year yet, but is it a combination of all those things? I mean, what is it?
I'd say so. I mean, they have good skill players. I thought the battle at the line of scrimmage was fairly evenly matched between the two teams. I thought both defensive lines probably had a slight edge, maybe. But I thought it came down to Salem had the better skill players. Ozuna is a very tough runner. Quinn Rocco Ryan's a receiver, and he's a very good safety as well. He had a good game at safety. But Grimes was really the real star. I mean, a 6'3" quarterback. They didn't use him as much that much as a runner this week. They used him as a passer. But yeah, I mean, they look like a team that had, been in that situation before in a tight game late and knew what to do in that situation. Probably more so than Gloucester, who's kind of still learning. They've dropped 3 close games this season. I think they're learning how to navigate those close and late situations, where Salem looked like a team that had a little bit more experience in that situation.
Well, let's do what the assistant coach asked Nick, and do a little more shout out on the podcast here to the Witches. We picked Alex Rodriguez last week as our player of the week, lineman, 2-way lineman for Salem. And by the way, Phil, you'd like this kid. I mean, he's a lacrosse player. He wrestles. I mean, he's going to be a championship wrestler, we understand, hopefully this winter for Salem High School and in the heavyweight class. And he just likes to hit people, So, and Nick, Coach Bouchard told me last week that his line plays better this year, that they're working well together. And I think earlier you shouted that out about Gloucester's line play this year is better than it was a year ago. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
it
it was
is.
just probably a tick up from, it was just a better game this year between those two teams this year in Gloucester. That's what it looks like from the outside for me.
Yeah, agreed. Both teams are definitely improved from last season. And yeah, I mean Salem, they did. They just looked like they were more confident in that situation. They were more relaxed. Even though Gloucester came back a bit, Salem kind of weathered the storm. They kind of took it on the chin and picked themselves up and made the play when they needed to.
Salem's headed to the new Saugus field, I guess, this weekend, the Friday night for
Yeah.
yeah, and the Sachem's winless, and so witches look to possibly go to 5-0 on the year. How about that?
Well,
Are
and
you gonna give
what was really exciting to look at is, if you're a Salem fan, well, let's just, say that they win this week. I'd say that chances are, probably better than even to win this week in Saugus. So then you're looking at 5-0, best start, and I mean, I'd have to look it up, but it's probably, it's got to be the best start this century. They've only had what, Willie, would you say 3 or 4 winning seasons since the turn of the century?
Yeah, let's see.
And I know in that the Super Bowl championship season they had in '99, they actually lost the opener to Peabody when they used to play Peabody in the opener every year. They lost that game. Willie, you were not on that team, were you? Were you a freshman that year?
Freshman, yeah. So they were, yeah. I was gonna say the year they were 3-0 when Beverly won the Super Bowl. Yeah, they lost the 4th game. That was the one that came into my mind.
So it had
Yeah,
to be sometime in like the '90s, I'm guessing.
Yeah, 93 maybe or 4. I don't know.
Let's say they win that game. Then you're looking at Salem welcoming in Masconomet for a Thursday night game on what day would that be? The 13th. Does that sound right?
That sounds right to me.
And Masco could be 3-2 if they beat Marblehead this week, or they could be 2-3 if they lose. But either way, that's a big step up from what Salem has faced so far in terms of their opposition. So we'd really get a chance to see what they look like against a team that has skill and size and speed. And that's not to disparage anyone they played so far, but it's definitely a step up for Salem. So I'd be very curious to see how they fare in that game. You certainly hope that all the goodwill that they've and great play and momentum and things like that they've gained so far this season would carry into that game, and they put it to good use, and that would be a great thing for the program and for Salem. But as we've talked about a few minutes ago with the game against Marblehead coming up, Masconomet is not going to roll over for anyone. They've got plenty of talent of their own, so should be a really interesting matchup week from Thursday.
I think you got to give Azuna a lot of props for what's going on over there. I mean, I feel like it's been a while since they've been a threat on the ground as much. Maybe going all the way back to the year that Samuel Fury spent there. I mean, last year their leading rusher had 500 some yards, and I feel like it was kind of like a receiver, a lot of jet sweep type of stuff. They haven't had a guy that can soften up the defense, and that defense really has to respect with guys in the box like Azuna in a while. So I think, as much as Grimes is a tremendous athlete, and delivers a great deep ball and is a great quarterback. I mean, the fact that the defense has to respect this run game, I think makes their pass game that much more dangerous. So really, that's kind of one of those undersung guys. Every week it seems like Azuna's doing yeoman's work there between the tackles and just getting really tough yards, and that makes a big difference for Salem, I feel like.
Yeah, he was
what
another one
Nick was
who
saying too about Grimes being such an important player. I mean, he's a big, tough, strong kid. He can bowl over guys. He's got the agility to work his way around the pocket, got a good arm, and finds open receivers. I mean, his maturation as a signal calling leader of that team offensively is obviously paying big dividends for Salem.
And I see there, I mean, the power rankings, they're 19th. So, I mean, they're cracking, they got to crack the top 16. So, I mean, I feel like if they can get to 6-2, 5-3, I mean, I think they might have a chance here to get in, and then, hey, see what happens.
Nick Kukuru, you're going to say something? You're over there.
I was going to say, Ozuna was another one who's his numbers didn't really do justice to his performance. He didn't put up a huge mark this week, but he got a lot of tough yards and, a lot of big chain moving carries in big spots.
Gentlemen, we could circle back to football in a moment, but I just thought maybe we should breeze through some other non-football stories if we could. And I know, well, Phil, let me start with you.
Sure.
Yeah, what do you have for non-football for us?
Well, starting off, I'll be at a couple of field hockey games this week, which piqued my interest. By the time you hear this, it'll have been played, but going to check out Peabody today. I haven't seen them all season. They're going to play Beverly. So a couple teams that, I think have played fairly well. Peabody more so in non-league competition where they've gotten all three of their wins. But Beverly has played well. I think despite their record, they've been in a lot of close games this year. They had a 1-goal game against Masconomet, which is undefeated. Lost twice to Danvers, so I think the record is a little bit skewed, but they've played well. And Peabody has gotten momentum from winning those non-league games. Now they want that to translate over into the Northeastern Conference slate. Beating a team like Beverly would do wonders for the program. So, as I said, I'll be going over there later today as we record this Monday afternoon to check that out. Another team I haven't seen yet that I'm looking forward to seeing on Thursday is Bishop Fenwick. Going to do a Fenwick doubleheader on Thursday, field hockey at 4, and then their football game at 7. And they're playing St. Mary's. What better game to catch Fenwick play than to take on their arch rivals in field hockey? For all the players that Fenwick graduated this year, I wondered, would there be any kind of fall off for them in terms of how they might fare record-wise or how their offense might produce? They've been going great guns, 6-1-2 so far this year. Really, really played well. They had Meg Donnelly step up in goal for them. She's got 5 shutouts. She's only given up 10 goals. Rain Millette has become the top scorer for this team, 10 goals, 14 points for her. Maddie Faragi is another one. She's got 7 goals and a couple of assists. Zoe Elwell's playing real well. She has about 8 points this season. Abby Bruner's scoring. Kaylee Cook is scoring. Tess Keenan is scoring. And they've had shutouts in their last 3 games. I know that. And they've gone undefeated in their last 4 with a tie in there. So great rivalry with St. Mary's. Mary Beth Mahoney and her staff have really turned this thing around. And it's kind of following the old Fenwick edict from the Buddy Henry softball days. We don't rebuild, we reload. And that appears as what Fenwick has done so far.
Got that Buddy Henry name in. Nice work, Phil. All right.
Thank you.
Nick, what about yourself?
I was sticking on the field. I guess the big news from my area this week, Gloucester picked up a big win over Danvers last week. Kind of really made that NEC race interesting. Danvers tied Masco. Masco beat Gloucester earlier in the season, but that was easily Gloucester's biggest win of the season. That 1-0 tally on the road last Tuesday. So they're 8-1-1 now, heading into kind of the second trip through the conference.
And I think I'm scheduled to do a week from today on the holiday. Gloucester is playing at Masconomet, and they're actually playing that game on the turf at Boxwood Commons. Of course, there's no turf on the school campus at Masconomet, but every so often they'll play a game on the turf. They did so 2 years ago during the pandemic season. It was actually a beautiful Veterans Day in November. Sun was out. It was almost 70 degrees. They had a beautiful game against Danvers that day to complete an undefeated season. So this game against Gloucester a week from today on Columbus Day should be another great one.
Where is that game going to be played again? What turf field?
That's the Boxford. I think it's called the Town Commons Field.
Okay. Town. I got it. A town field. Matt, how about yourself? Yeah.
Oh, I think speaking of the grass, Masco girls soccer narrowly avoided some terrible news. Their great defender, Kylie Dumont, caught a knee in the grass field at practice, and they feared the worst, but the MRI came back clean, and she's only going to miss a couple of weeks, which is great news for their state championship hopes. I mean, they're 9-0, third in the power rankings, and a true state title contender, Masco is, but without her, geez, those playoff games would have been tough. So great news. They're going to get Kylie back in a couple of weeks, and certainly great news for the Masco basketball team. They're going to need her this winter too. So dodged a bullet there, and they knocked off Beverly on Friday. Beverly had been unbeaten in their last 6 games. They lost the opener to Masco. They ran the table the rest of the way with a tie mixed in there, and then they lost to Masco again. So just shows you Masco's streak continues and Beverly's ends, and Beverly will try to start a new one. But Masco looks like the team to beat certainly this year. And the other undefeated team in our area is Essex Tech. You know, the Hawks are 6-0-1. They've run the table in CAC play. Their only tie was a non-leaguer against Ipswich out of the Cape Ann. So some good stuff going on over there, girls soccer wise, for the Hawks as well.
You know, that Masconama team, Willie, you're just talking about, they, 9-0, 7 shutouts, and they've had
Yep.
some close 1-goal wins. So they're not blowing people away necessarily, but it's an impressive start. There's no doubt. They play tough opponents like Andover, North Andover. I think Lincoln Sudbury might have been one of their opponents, or they will be playing them. But anyways,
Yeah, it's
it's
exactly
not
right.
like it's not like there's a lot of 8-0 scores here. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
and that's why you're seeing, I think, them high in the power rankings, because of that tough schedule. Andover, North Andover, Central Catholics in there, I think, at some point. So yeah, exactly. It's that old adage we always talk about, like because the margin of victory is part of the formula. So, like, do you want to win games by a lot or play tough teams, or hopefully both? But certainly it's paying dividends for the Chieftains so far. And yeah, they've been great on every surface: grass, turf, home, away. It hasn't mattered yet. And they play Danvers on Columbus Day as well, which is Danvers is doing reasonably well. Having already beaten Beverly twice, if they should beat Danvers a second time, that would essentially wrap up the NEC title, right on Columbus Day. I think. I mean, I'd have to do the math, but if they have already swept both of those teams, I can't imagine anybody can catch them.
All right, gentlemen. Hey, how about those Patriots Sunday? We're recording this on Monday afternoon. Any thoughts on this? Actually, a much more enjoyable game than I was expecting, to be
How
quite
about
honest with
Phil's
you, on
tweet?
Sunday. What's that?
How about Phil's tweet before the game?
Oh yeah, what's the deal with that, Phil?
I don't know. I couldn't explain it. I mean,
Just tell the listeners what did the tweet say?
I don't know. I tweeted out 10 minutes or so ago, 10 minutes or so before the game started. So I don't know why. I have no knowledge to ahead of time or whatever. I just got a feeling that Bailey Zappi is going to make his NFL debut for the Patriots today at some point. And I honestly thought it was because they were going to get rolled and that they'd throw him in, in the fourth quarter. We're down by 4 touchdowns. Let's get some, work or whatever. I wasn't expecting it in the first quarter, but yeah, that was an entertaining game. He acquitted himself quite well. I'm not sure about handcuffing the poor kid in the fourth quarter and overtime. I think shot themselves in the foot a little bit, but that's neither here nor there. Hey, it's the whole broken clock is right twice a day kind of analogy, I guess.
Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a good game. I was expecting them to get blown out, so I was happy that they took it to overtime. But you couldn't ask for much more out of Zappi. I honestly, I didn't have a problem with them punting it away in overtime. I know that was a controversial, decision there, but I really didn't have a problem with it. Their defense was, for the most part. I know Rogers got hot in the second half, but he was, they were the most part why they were in that game. They made a few big stops, got some points. So, he put the game into what was the better of the two units, and Rogers got the better of them.
Speaking of tweets, Matt, did you tweet that if Rogers loses to Zappi, his career's over, or something along those lines?
I said he should retire. As we may remember, Mike Tyson's last fight against some no-name guy, he was sitting in the ring by himself, and he said, "I'm not going to disrespect the sport by losing to this caliber of fighter." And I think that applies to Rogers. With all due respect to Mr. Zappi, I think that's the caliber of fighter that Mike Tyson was talking about. That was all I could think of was Mike Tyson saying, it's such a nice turn of phrase that's so unique to boxing, right? Caliber of fighter. I just cracked me up.
I had a buddy who was out at Lambeau yesterday, and I texted him during the game. I said, "You'll remember where you were 20 years from now when Bailey Zappi's led the Patriots to 9 Super Bowl championships, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer and surpasses Brady as the greatest of all time. You were there when it happened." He's like, "You never know. Who would have said it about Brady?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't expect to be right with 2 miracle predictions, but."
But
mean,
but didn't you everybody have that thought at some point? It's like, wait a minute here, maybe there is something here. Maybe this is how this stuff happens.
it
It's
is.
it's
It,
how it happens. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know. I pulled that one out of my keister yesterday. That's for sure. I got a lot of oh, did you play the lottery? Can you see the future and all? It's like, trust me, I wouldn't if I had those things, I probably wouldn't be doing this podcast every week. Let's put it that way.
And then you came back down to earth with a tweet today saying that you'll be at the field hockey game in Peabody. I mean, okay, fine, good.
There you go.
It'll be
Right?
a good game. I get it, but it's
Exactly.
nothing earth shattering, right?
Nothing earth shattering.
We'll get the report later. Yeah. All right, guys. Anything else to share with us here? I think we got like a minute or two left here, but if we want to take it, we don't have to take it all. We just run the clock down here too, unlike the Patriots yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am interested to see how I think Willie mentioned at the top of the show, but Beverly at Danvers Friday night. I mean, God, there's a couple of programs that really need a win on the gridiron. Beverly, of course, is 0-4. Danvers is 1-3. I think Danvers has lost 2 straight. Yeah, they did. They lost to Reading, and then they got what I would say upset at Winthrop this past weekend. I mean, something's got to give. It seems to me like, Willie, you thought Beverly played a little bit better than they did the previous week against Peabody.
I thought they played really well. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and offensively, so I mean, the defense again with the pass game has some work to do, but offensively, it was like a totally different team. I thought Roman Sullivan gave them a huge lift, and the threat of Roman Sullivan opened up some things for Blake Kessel there in the pass game. He looked more confident, more sure of himself. Offensively, they look like a totally different team.
And Danvers, I think, is going to be looking to shake their doldrums after, as I mentioned, 2 losses. Reading, I suppose you can be forgiven, but not a great loss in Winthrop, I would say. 13 points in the last 8 quarters, not what they're looking for. I think it's a continual work in progress where they're trying to get a young line synced up with their skill players and establish some kind of continuity offensively where they can go to other guys aside from Owen Gaskin, obviously, to get him the ball. If they were able to get Steve Reardon back from his injury, that might help. I'm not sure what his timetable is, and they're trying to work the sophomore Joe Baker into the backfield and all. So, as I said, just very interested to see what's going to transpire there. Somebody, as I suppose it is with every weekend, somebody's going to leave that game happy and feeling good and full of promise moving forward, and someone else is going to be like, okay, back to the drawing board again. So a lot to play for both these teams.
That was a heck of a win for Fenwick too. We should just
Yeah,
give
yeah,
them
exactly.
Aiden Breen, Johnny on the spot again, causing that turnover that allowed them to tie the game and then steal it in overtime. Great job by the Crusaders. I mean, this might be one of Dave Woods's best coaching jobs overall. When you think about everything they've graduated in the last 2 years, to be undefeated after September again. I mean, wow, it's they're doing a good job over there.
And real quick before we go, I know all the love when we start thinking about awards, things like that, go to the offensive guys, the quarterbacks or the rushers or, top receivers, that kind of thing. But sneakily, has Aiden Breen kind of played his way into player of the year type category? I mean, he's been a difference maker every week for them this year. He's done something, whether it's double-digit tackles, he's creating forced fumbles, he's picking off passes, he's coming up with big sacks. He's doing something every week to make a difference for them. And I'm not saying he's going to win player of the year. I'm just saying, like, has his play merited consideration for him to do so?
Yeah.
Well,
sure.
Matt, I'm gonna have to, because we're gonna be cut off here for time wise here, but that's a great thought, and thanks for sharing that. And we should have touched on that game earlier. I admit that. So, anyways, that's it, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Bill.